are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast. Here are Lisa, Billy, and Darren.
Welcome to another edition of the ITMOD podcast. Joining us is Lisa Gullickson, wife Dork.
Hello.
And also joining us is William Das, the indie Dork.
Hey, everybody.
And I'm your host, Darren Smith, the Disco Dork. And welcome to another edition of the ITMOD CHATcast.
Yay! We just got done with an amazing, fun interview.
Yep.
Thank you for bringing it to us, Indie Dork.
You are welcome. Holy shit. So today we have Chris Peckover, who directed a movie called Undocumented, which, Jesus Christ, that movie's intense.
I have not seen it. In fact, Billy told me not to watch it because it is not VF.
No, I don't think it's a Lisa movie.
No.
But everyone else should look at it.
Sure.
It's intense. And then also the most recent release, which is Better Watch Out, which is a horror movie about some kids home with a babysitter who are being attacked and things go awry from there. So, but they're really terrific movies. And this dude was a lot of fun to talk to. I'm really excited to share this interview with people.
Absolutely. Now, in the interview, we do get into spoilers. So you can watch this movie. Billy watched it on iTunes. Mm-hmm. I watched it on Amazon. So be sure to watch the movie before you listen to the interview because you do not want to be spoiled for the movie. But also, you want to know what the fuck we're talking about. So, because we don't get too specific. We do a bad job of remembering that people are listening.
Yeah. Keep in mind, I know a lot of people sometimes are sensitive about spoilers or whatever, and like, it's fine, I don't need to worry about this. But the movie takes a pretty hard pivot from the first act to the second act, and you really don't see it coming, and it adds a lot to your first viewing experience if you do it. So you should stop what you're doing right now and watch this fucking movie. So pull your car over.
That's dangerous.
Get it on your phone. We'll pull a car over.
Are they on their way to or from work?
I assume to. So be late to work. That's okay.
Call in sick.
It's quick. It's 83 minutes.
Yeah, you could have. Just say you had a potty emergency.
This is about the right amount of time for that. So potty emergency, side of the road, LTE connection, rent the movie, watch it. You're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's going to do it for the intro. Ladies and gentlemen, here are the meat and potatoes. Chris Peckover.
Yay.
We're here with Chris Peckover for the next and latest and greatest session of the CHATcast. He is the writer and director of Undocumented from 2010, which you fucking need to see. And then he is also the writer and director of Better Watch Out, which just came out on October the 6th. And it's a Christmas movie about some kids who are home with a babysitter and shit starts to go down. And the only thing that I want to say about it at the outset, before we announce the fact that, look, where there's going to be fucking spoilers in this conversation, is Better Watch Out is fucking amazing. And I am so excited to have you along, Chris, to chat about this movie.
Me too.
Yeah.
We were saying a few things over email, and I was realizing like maybe we should save it for the podcast. So that's good.
I get a little bit embarrassingly excited over email. Well, I get embarrassingly excited about stuff. I think I have a well-earned reputation for liking to like things, and I don't think it's hyperbolic. I'm genuine. I'm genuinely excited about these things.
Okay, so here is my first and most. This is just what's in my heart in the moment. And so did you ever, the character of Luke, Levi Miller's character, he's at that awkward transition from like being an asexual child to being like a person with sexual desires but still dumb child ideas. And I'm just wondering, as you were directing him and him really being in that vein, did you ever feel like just a perv?
Okay. The whole time I felt like I should be feeling weirdly pervy. But then, you know what? It totally wasn't, because I kept going back to this memory of being 12 and knowing I just felt like an alien, like I'm going through something that no one's gone through before. And weirdly, it was actually really cathartic for me, but also for Levi and for Ed to be open about that stuff. Mm-hmm. 'Cause it's stuff that they wanted to talk about. And hilariously, like their parents were on set and so on. Like, they were such open people that like, there was no fear. They were kind of willing to go there. So we didn't talk too much about like how things are changing for them and so on, but we kind of talked about the character and what he would be going through. So it was weirdly like, you know how like therapists like bring a doll into the room and like, so what is Betsy thinking or whatever. It was kind of like that, except with a giant psychopathic character. So
because I read that like, so throughout the film he's doing this thing where he's kind of stroking his face with the gun, and that was something that he brought to the audition. So he clearly has like an awareness. Like that's not the kind of thing, and the way he's doing it, like that's not the kind of thing you can like evoke without having like an understanding.
Yeah, so Levi comes from a really interesting place where he's been acting for a couple of years, but way probably more importantly to this role, he's been like the boy face of oh god, wait, which one is it? Ralph Lauren. He's been like the poster child of Ralph Lauren for years now.
And he was in Peter Pan, so they're like monopolizing on his like impish good looks. You know, like he's like a pretty he's a pretty child.
He's an absurdly handsome kid who kind of is way smarter than people his age. And so he kind of already gets that there's this bizarre like objectifying of him in a weird way, and I think he was kind of playing off that and loving getting to play off that.
So he mentioned in the interview that I read that you had given him sources and films to watch and prepare for the role. Like, what did you give him?
Oh man, I told him to watch American Psycho.
Nice. He totally. I see that.
I didn't want to keep it too much because I knew, and then just for fun, I made everyone watch Little Shop of Horrors.
Yay!
I don't even remember why. I just remember
because
thinking
it's
like, because it's a fantastic movie, and they were like, I don't get it, and I was like, I guess the new generation doesn't get it as much. But
I think
everyone got American Psycho.
I think they need to be schooled in musicals. I feel like the young people, you know, I think we're coming back to the musical with Moana, but I feel like Frozen ruined people. That's just an aside. So I guess we should start with the interview in earnest. Or I could talk horror
honestly,
musicals all day.
Like Levi brought a lot to the table, and it was way more than I thought any person his age could.
Right.
He really brought a lot of, like, and it's fun. Like when you're directing actors, hopefully you're doing a good job by saying, we're not going to all go with my directing style. I'm going to kind of change my style depending on your needs. Mm-hmm. And so I kept asking him, like, what's your process? What's your process? And he reminded me so much of what Heath Ledger used to say. He was like, I just keep reading the script over and over and over again until the character clicks for me. Mm-hmm. He's not like, there's like the Matt Damon school of thinking, which is like you break it apart and you analyze each scene and you find the subtext and so on. He's more just feeling it, kind of Heath Ledger does, or did, and it was just so much fun to direct him because he was able to shift things very easily then on set if things weren't working.
Well, so I think his acting talents are a huge part of the movie. So before I kind of segue the question just a little bit, because I'm very interested in this, just a reminder to everybody who's listening, we're going to talk about spoilers. And so you need to hit pause on the movie, on the podcast right now, and go buy the movie and fucking watch it, okay? Because you're going to appreciate this later on down the line if you don't have some of the pivots in this movie kind of spoiled for you. It's essential. Okay, so that being said, you guys had your chance to bail out. All right. So look, I think Levi's acting is phenomenal in this because you the first act of the movie is him reacting along with Olivia DeJonge as sort of these things happen around them, right? That they're being stalked, they're being attacked, they're being threatened, they're getting frightened, and then the first act pivot into the second act where the jig is up. It's revealed that this has been his plan all along. And I was like, okay, I'm kind of interested to see where this goes. And then she's gives just an amazing monologue where she just lights him up for being basically a childish psychopath, and then marches out of the room to go just call his parents. And when he goes down the hallway and slaps her down the stairs, I was like, what the fuck am I watching? Because he there's literally no punch pulled in that slap. Like, that's probably one of the most visceral, surprising slaps that I did not see it coming. And her tumble down the stairs is brutal and painful, and holy shit. So for that transition, Levi had to pull off this huge acting pivot as he went through it. Like, how, when you're saying he's reading the script over and over and he's working with the character, like, how much of that is coming from you as the director, pushing him in a direction to kind of help him understand the subtext of the character that's being portrayed on screen, and how much of that is him just getting it, like just understanding to the core what's going on with his character?
So Levi, apologies ahead of time, because my answer to that is actually Levi was way easier to direct after the twist.
Oh, no kidding.
Because he, listen, he has spent years now on set surrounded by adults.
Right.
He's this hyper intelligent kid who's kind of used to being, the only one on set. So this was actually a fun change for him where he got to have several people his age, and that was awesome. Hilariously, it was the front act of the movie that is kind of least like him. Not that he's like the rest of the movie,
right?
But he's such a giant personality. Like when you're in the room with him, he's either very humble and demure, or he just lights up the room. So weirdly, we ended up doing more takes in the front where I was just trying to be like, no, people can't see how intelligent you are. People can't see, the crazy energy that you have. We just need to play you as this charming boy who, and who's got this sweet affection for his babysitter. That part of you is like, ugh, that's weird. But then all 80s kids, or all kids always go for the babysitter. So maybe it's fine. He does it in a very charming way. Hilariously, he had a lot more fun and ease chewing up the scenery, which again is so backwards. You'd think it was the opposite, but not at all with him.
But it's awesome that you took the time in that front part, because I've now watched it twice. So I saw it the first time at a film festival, a genre film festival here locally called Psychorama, and I got to see it with a crowd, and that was amazing. And then I watched it again yesterday in preparation for this interview, and watching him be this kind of reserved kid, or this kind of, helpless person, feels so diabolical on the second time around.
It was, I'm not going to say it was hard. Levi's not at all hard to direct, but we definitely did more takes to just get it exactly right. Because you guys are right. This is, Lisa, you said it, it's kind of, upon a second viewing, you start to realize when boys go out and are kind of lusting for their babysitters, we all go oh yeah, kids will be kids. But then on the second round, you're wait, no, this is actually saying that's not necessarily the best thing. And so he had both of them had I was very, very specific with them about kind of you have to do it in a way that we get that you're lusting after, but you're also doing it in a way that doesn't alienate the audience from you.
Right. Well,
and then on Olivia's side,
yeah.
She actually, it's weird. She doesn't have the loud, crazy role that Levi does, but I think she actually had the hardest role to pull off, because she ends up needing to ground all of this. Mm-hmm. And talk about someone who found this razor thin balance between being the tough babysitter who says no, but not in a cold way that makes us go ugh, I don't like her.
Well, watching her, because there's kind of the trope of the babysitter in the horror film, but I was a babysitter, and I remember what it was like to be at that weird transition where all of a sudden, you're an authority figure and you're, a 16-year-old watching a 12-year-old and you want to be, you need to be in charge, but at the same time, you want to be cool and you love being adored. You just love it. And so, like, what I found particularly telling was the champagne and how she gave in to him just swigging champagne so easily just because, like, just part of her just wanted to be just cool and loved and sexualized.
Yeah, and as soon as if she'd said no, it just would have made things tougher. And I also babysat, and I just remember thinking, like, how can I be an authority figure with as little effort as possible? Because also, like, you don't want these kids to hate you. You want to come back and get more jobs from these parents and so on.
Did you have any trepidation doing the babysitter horror film trope, or do you feel like it's like an homage or something new?
Well, I mean, everyone starts out as this archetype. And I think you can't help in movies but have archetypes as long as you then subvert them,
Right.
And for Olivia's character, she's kind of like you're saying, at that cusp of, like, I'm still a teenager, but, like, she's on the phone a lot. She's dealing with her life. She's dealing with love life. She's moving soon. It's like she's on the cusp of her own, like, shift to another, like, if Levi's going from, like, prepubescent to pubescent, she's going from, like, teenager to I'm about to, like, fly the coop.
Right.
And I liked having her seem, like the regular babysitter character in the first act, but then she ends up kind of really, really, really growing up a lot that night.
Well, I think, Lisa. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it was just like, so it doesn't bother me to start with an archetype as long as you don't stick with it, because then you're right. That's totally boring.
Well, before we kind of got online, Lisa and I were chatting about her character and the fact that, like, I don't want to steal Lisa's words, but, she basically said that her in the car at the beginning of the movie on the rewatch looked totally different than her at the end of the movie.
Like I hardly recognized the girl sitting in the car with the lip gloss in the face, Like, by the end of the movie, she's like a completely different human being. And I was wondering how much was that inherent in the script, and how much of that change just evolved as Olivia was discovering the character.
The back, it was supported in the script, but Olivia brought so much. Oh my God. I'm predicting this right now. In the next 3 years, she's going to explode, if not sooner than that. I think she's brilliant. She's got such a smart head for, like, being likable, but, like, grounding whatever craziness the movie, has of her. I don't want to spoil the next movie that she's going to be acting in, but she's taking this, like, she's just so good at taking, like, really cartoonish situations and just making it real.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of that was her.
Yeah, I was going to say, Levi's in super intense performances, that are just full of energy. Like when he hits the boyfriend in the head with the baseball bat, and then he does a little dance like he's doing a baton twirl in the hallway with the bat, where he just gets lost in his own little thing and he's having a good time, and it's all a show, and he's putting on a production, and he just falls into that, meshed up against, like, what Olivia brought to the table, like you say, as a grounded character. You don't buy in, like, the cartoonish of Levi's character becomes all of a sudden not very cartoonish because of her reaction to it. So as much as I think, like, Levi brings a good energy to the film, and those second and third acts hinge on him doing that, they're also, like, she has to show up and ground that so that you feel the reality of the movie as it goes along. I don't know. So I guess kind of in that line, my question here is, like, all of your actors that were picked for this production are just fantastically well suited for the material. I'm genuinely very curious, like, how did the casting process work for you as you were going out and looking for them? What's that like when you're trying to make a smaller budget movie and you absolutely have to have the people who can bring some fire and the right energy to their parts?
With the boys, it was just, we read like 200 people.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a lot of reading, and to be honest, nobody. I had a lot of favorites before we had met Levi, but I was also concerned because we really shot ourselves in the foot by writing a 12-year-old who needed as much range as the script required of him. And in hindsight, like that was pretty naive on our part. Like my before we read Levi, my other top choices were all hitting about 2/3 of the range, but there was 1/3 gap that just was not in their thing. And then Levi, like I said, like when we auditioned him, I just got chills. It was he was so head and shoulders above everybody else that if we hadn't have read him, I'm not sure how awesome the movie would have turned out.
I want to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, and then so Ed, I had been eyeing him for a year at that point. After seeing The Visit and seeing his comfort with. Again, he's got this great sense of comedy, but he's so good at grounding it. Like it was interesting. Sometimes I'd be pushing him to go further with certain things on set, and it just wasn't computing for him. And I was realizing, oh, I'm trying to direct him like Levi. Levi can go beyond the real and almost make it like this iconic thing. Ed, it wouldn't compute for him because he was like, but I just don't know how to make him do that because that's not real. Like he was so good at keeping it grounded, and he was right to push back. Like in hindsight, I'd look at his performance and be like, yeah, he made the right choices. So I kind of got saved by them in a lot of ways. Olivia, I just lucked out. I can't tell you. We came very, very close to casting somebody else who it would have been a different movie. I'll even say who it was because it was for 5 weeks. All of Selena Gomez's reps were pushing for her to do this. And she was prepping for so this was like I think October 2014. So this was like a year and some change before we shot, but when we were going out to actresses, and like her managers were saying yes and her agents were saying yes, and she was prepping for what's the show? I forget. Some very big musical show, and she had not quite blown up yet. And she finally read the script, and she said, I really like this, but I think I want to pursue music. And like within 2 months, she just absolutely exploded. So I think she made the right choice. But also, it would have been a bit of a different movie, because in a weird way, I feel like she's such an iconic giant person. It would have been the Selena Gomez movie.
Right.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
like Billy, you were saying, like this movie kind of relied on a balancing act between Olivia's role and Levi's role, in that they kind of balanced each other because she was grounding so much. Levi could go further, and then because he was going further, it forced Olivia to keep things more grounded. So they really, their chemistry was so important. And I'm sure that Selena would have done amazingly, but it would have definitely felt like a different movie in my opinion.
I want to go back a little bit to when you originally got Zach Kahn's script from Brian Hamble and Paul Jensen on that, because like just as a concept, it has a lot, like the idea has a lot of appeal. The idea of, a twisted Home Alone or a turn on the Babysitter horror story. But what made you think that I am the person to make this film?
Well, so it's interesting. When Brian and Paul brought me Zach's script, it was kind of in a different tonal place where the twist didn't happen until 60 pages in.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last like 25 or 30 minutes were, I don't want to say torture porn, but it was definitely
Darker?
It was a very hopeless movie for the post twist bit. And I really fell in love with Zach's voice, and also the twist just felt like $1 million twist. But I kind of told Brian and Paul, like, listen, I feel uncomfortable. Like Olivia's character, it was misogynistic isn't the right word, but she was a crying, begging thing
Oh,
in the
man.
last 30 minutes, and there's never any hope, and like
Oof.
at one point, like one of her eyeballs was sticking out of her face. It was just like not,
Fuck.
it was a little different.
Oh, man.
But I
Okay.
mean, but meanwhile, Zach's like an incredibly twisted, creative,
Sure.
hilarious. Like the dark humor of the movie was there. It's just that it was also hopeless, and I think I'm not good at that type of thing. In fact, I kind of did that a little bit with Undocumented. I didn't do
Yeah.
torture porn, but like it's kind of like not only is it a very difficult situation, it's also being incredibly darkly comedic. And I find dark comedy needs to be balanced with hope.
Yes.
And also respect for its characters. So I suggested a bit of a rewrite where we make the twist happen much sooner, and then like it's actually the second half of the movie is the awesome part, where and one of the stipulations I had is like Olivia's character is never allowed to beg, she's never allowed to cry, she's never allowed to. She always has to either be toe to toe with Levi or one step ahead of him.
Yeah.
Except for I don't want to give away the movie entirely, but like except for a couple of the last scenes where it's like, oh my god, is this movie going to go nihilistic?
Right.
And it was important to me because I'm a hyper vocal feminist, and it felt like an interesting challenge. Like, how do you make a movie where in the second half the girl is tied up and gagged, and yet there's moments of uncomfortability, but like for the most part, my goal was I want women to come out of that movie and be like, she fucking rocked.
She did.
And that was an awesome viewing experience because I didn't. Yeah, that was the goal, and I hope we pulled it off.
Oh, I think absolutely you did. Absolutely you did. And it was so cool to see her just so defiant throughout. And she never had it in her mind that this is not a child standing before her. No matter how sadistic he got, he was always a child in her eyes.
Yes. In fact, more so and more so.
Yeah.
He was becoming this like tantruming thing.
Another
oh, go ahead.
Another addition that you added to the script that I thought was brilliant is the character of Garrett. Garrett came from the second iteration of the script. Am I right?
Garrett was in the very first scene of Zach's. So remember how I said I loved Zach's voice?
Yeah.
That opening scene, it was much longer. It was like 7 pages or something. It was an absurdly long opening scene that, but I loved his voice as Garrett. Zach was so good at 12-year-old speak, and I was kind of like, I want that all the way through. I want them to be like arguing about which Adventure Time character would be better fucked while holding guns to her face.
Yes.
Like it's like this weird Tarantino feel. It's like John Hughes meets Tarantino, and so yeah, like to Zach's credit, I just took what he started and I ran with it. And Garrett's character was so much fun to write, and also he helped balance things out because he kind of ends up sharing the light with Olivia as far as like being the emotional window into the story in the second half.
I think absolutely.
Yeah, when he's at the top of the stairs after Luke has slapped Ashley down the stairs and he says, "What the fuck are you doing?" Literally, I said in time with him, with his character, with Garrett's character, "What the fuck are you doing with this movie?" Like out loud. It was an out loud exclamation for me. And it was one of those moments where as soon as it was done, I was like, "Oh, okay, all right." So I clearly am I'm identifying with Garrett as we're going through this movie. This was all fun and games until what the fuck are you doing? But I was just gonna add on to that turn to make Ashley a much stronger character where she doesn't cry and she doesn't beg and she matches him wit for wit. Like that made the movie for me, because if that isn't there, it's just a much angrier movie, and it's a much more nihilistic movie, and I think that's what sells it.
And there's people who also like those. It's just
sure.
I didn't know how to do it from like I couldn't have done it because I had kind of done a hopeless movie already and done like I'm really proud of Undocumented, but not as many people went out to see that. And I was kind of like, I can't do that again. I want a career. So,
Well, so I'm kind of curious. I'm very curious about the transition from Undocumented to Better Watch Out. I mean, there's, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years in between those two movies where you really haven't started pre-production on Better Watch Out yet. What's going on in that time frame, and kind of what drove? Is it genuinely just Undocumented was a great movie. I loved it. I love watching it. I totally get what you're saying though, because fuck, I finished the end of that movie and my wife and I just kind of looked at each other and we're like, God damn, that was intense and kind of a bummer, but like good, really good, but damn. And then you finish Better Watch Out, and it, like, I almost feel like is that final frame of Better Watch Out where the bird is flipped? Like, is that you going, I will not make a major bummer of an ending again. This has to have a hopeful thing.
A little bit. Here's the big lesson I learned, not from the making of Undocumented, but from the reception of it. I can't help but want to make like social commentary in my movies.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome. Like people who saw early cuts of Better Watch Out when Get Out came out, they were like, "You're kind of doing the same thing," and that was like the ultimate compliment to me because with Undocumented, we were kind of playing the commentary as the text, and I discovered that like people don't like that. If so, let's say the people who agree with the commentary, they just feel like the choir, they're getting preached to by the choir. Or then, Republicans who watch the movie are like, damn fucking liberal Hollywood propaganda, so I kind of didn't win in either circle. And I discovered that my goal of making like a movie that is a hammer to the face, I succeeded, but that's kind of an immature goal. If you want to work in Hollywood and actually make a career out of it, like I was saying before, you kind of have to make your goal like to entertain people as much as possible. And if you get to slip in commentary into subtext, that's great. But the text, the plot, all the character stuff should work on it's a fun roller coaster ride on the top. So that was my goal, and it took me a while to get there. I was developing a movie at Blind Wink, which is Gore Verbinski's company, before it kind of shut down. So that was a couple years wasted, and I could go into all the things that kind of began and then stopped, but finally Better Watch Out happened, and I was like, I'm not going like. I'm sure you guys caught a lot of the commentary in it, but like I was like, it's got to play underneath the fun of it. Otherwise, if it ever feels like it's preaching, then I'm just doing the same thing.
Yeah, I actually, I think that does work actually a lot better and Better Watch Out, because when I'm watching it, you're shown the commentary, like show don't tell, right? Show don't tell, and I feel like you're shown this commentary about like the childish psychopathy of nice guys and their expectations, and how it seems very innocent at the outset, and it really is insidious, and not every case, but in many cases it turns into this awfulness that people have to reach back and push back against. And so it was really cool to see her be such a strong character through that. But I got to tell you, man, I was talking to my wife before before I came over here to do the interview with you, and I was just, I get her input on kind of the things that I'm thinking about, because she watches these movies along with me, and she was like, you need to just sit down and have a conversation with this guy about the politics of immigration for an entire hour. Because she was like, I really want you to talk about this, because she's a teacher, and so she sees a lot of kids who are undocumented working and that she works with in the school system, and a lot of those kind of issues are very emotionally near and dear to her as a result of that. And so like she watched Undocumented and like was like, fuck. And I'm not kidding, man. We probably talked for 2 hours about just the politics of immigration after we were done watching that movie. So I mean, it smashes you in the face. And I see the concern about being in a choir, but it did encourage conversation. Like I genuinely would recommend people take a look at that movie just to kind of to see the distinction, like you're talking about, between the focus of Better Watch Out and the techniques that you use to bring the message out versus the approach that you took in Undocumented.
Yeah, it's I grew up in the smallest county in Texas. It was called Rockwall,
Mm-hmm.
and there was always this weirdly, strangely thin line between like patriotism and racism there, and I feel like in the 7 years since Undocumented came out, it's become more prevalent.
Yep.
And I had a lot of friends once I moved to LA. A lot of my friends had been undocumented as kids crossing, and they told me all the stories of people just getting left behind and people getting shot and so on. And I just and you know what? The thing that made Undocumented happen, I worked at Google for a year right out of film school, and it was the year that Google acquired YouTube. And so mixed in with the work that we were doing was also kind of like watching flagged videos to decide whether to pull them.
Oh, goddamn.
And so I had access to like every flagged video, and I used to have this really popular email like once a week where I'd be like, these videos are going to get pulled, but watch them if you want. Here's the funny ones. Here's the disturbing ones, and so on. And one that just wrecked me was some dude had attached a camera to a semi-automatic rifle, and through a scope you could see that he was like basically like aiming to the other side of the border, and you could see these like people crossing the desert, and he just started shooting at them, and they ran and like ducked behind a water barrel, and you hear this like voice being like, "Dag nabbit, you missed him!"
Oh.
And I realized, my fucking God, like they were actually shooting at people in Mexico trying to cross. And then I acted like I was still in school, and I contacted the guy in charge of the Minuteman organization.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Hey, I'm writing a paper on you guys. Can I interview you about you guys?" And he opened up way more than he should have, because he was a crazy guy. And I just found out how the Minuteman organization works, and it was horrifying. And that was enough to get Undocumented going as a script.
What other kind of background research did you do that for? I guess let alone Undocumented, but what kind of background research did you do for Better Watch Out? Because like these portrayals of these things that you have in here, Undocumented is brutal. And I can see I want to say the word earnestness, but I don't think it's right. Like I can see the genuineness in Z's organization's position and the way that it matches up with some of these like militant vigilante extremists who sit out there watching the border thinking that that's their execution of patriotism. I mean, like how deep down the rabbit hole did you go of that as you were thinking about putting this together?
So with Undocumented, it was a ton of research, and the most important thing to me about the Patriots in Undocumented was I didn't want them to be idiots.
Right.
I wanted every argument that they make for you to be like, you know what? Yeah, those statistics are correct. It's just you're missing a humanity. It's hard. It's really hard to fight people's prejudice with numbers and information, because they just have their own numbers and information, and you're like, yeah, you're right, but that's not the right way to deal with it. With Better Watch Out, before I switched to film in college, I was a psychology major, so I've got all the books on remembering Satan and if you guys remember that 80s streak, just all
man.
like I've got every Oliver Sacks book he ever wrote. And I love kind of like mental fuck ups. So we try to be pretty accurate. There's one scene. Should I say there's one
Yes, you
scene
should
that's
say
actually
it.
not accurate to how like Luke would have been.
Yes.
It's the breast touching scene
Oh.
I would like to know more. Please go on.
because real like the type of thing that I modeled after him, they don't get turned on sexually in a normal way like that.
Yep.
So he wouldn't have
That's not going to
gotten
do
turned on
anything.
by that.
Right.
He
Right.
gets turned on by power and by the attention of it and so on. And so that was the one scene where I kind of took a little story license.
I'm very curious how you went about filming that scene. I mean, the reality of the situation is Levi is like, what, 12 or 13 years old when you're filming this movie. Olivia DeYoung, I can't imagine she was probably, what, 17 years old?
That's exactly it.
Okay.
He had just turned 13 and she was a couple months away from being 18.
But like the way that you went about shooting the scene is so true. Okay, so let's set the stage just to remind people is she's duct taped to a chair, and Garrett and Luke are there, and they're going to play Truth or Dare is what he's decided. His power trip game is Truth or Dare. And Garrett dares Luke to touch her tit. And when he goes in to do that, he torments her and all that happens. Sure, fine, fair enough. But like you put the camera over her shoulder so that you cannot actually see her being groped in the scene. And I'm very curious why, like, what was the reasoning behind that choice to put the camera placement like that? Is it just because they're so young in the acting, or is it because you didn't want to objectify her? What's the goal there?
I almost made it so that he didn't get to touch her breast, that Garrett points and laughs at his crotch before he even does it.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Because to me, and it's really funny that you're asking about a sexual side of that, because usually I get the question of like, why didn't you show the paint can?
Yeah, well, it's almost, because I was thinking the same thing. Like, it's almost the same question.
It's the same question because, how do I explain this? Okay, so sometimes you need to show it to make the audience afraid of future times it might happen.
Sure.
In Jaws, that opening scene is fucking horrific.
Yes.
But the reason why people talk about Jaws and so love the fact that other things weren't shown is our imagination can fill it in 10 times better. And if you were to keep showing the gore every time something gory happens,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of becomes pornographic and you're focused so much on the gore, or in this case, the taboo sexuality,
Mm-hmm.
that I don't want to say it takes you out of the movie, but it makes you focus on the wrong thing. So I guarantee you, if we had shown his hand touching her boob, you wouldn't have been paying attention to his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And to me, his eyes were way more important. We can talk about the paint can scene if you want, but it's a similar like I find that a good movie balances being horrific and gory and ludicrous in some moments so that you're afraid of it for future moments.
Okay. So I have two things. One is a question and one is just a statement. So after having asked that question, I just want to clarify that I wasn't sitting in front of the movie lasciviously waiting for like, yeah, touch your tit. Like that was not the motivation for the question at all. I feel like that's just how I came across right now. So I just want to just flatly say I thought it was a really good choice and I was very curious what the reason were, and you answered that question thoroughly. Thank you. Let's move on from my sexual obsession with
We're not judging you.
Thank you. This is a safe space. I feel safe. Okay. So, oh shit. All right. So I'm actually just kind of curious about the paint can scene in general. So I get the not showing it. I think that makes sense and it falls in line with the explanation that you covered there. But you've got child actors on stage, and it is a stunt that is set up, and it's a really great effect that you executed. And I'm just wondering if you would mind talking a little bit about the practical execution of a stunt like that on a set in Better Watch Out.
Yeah. So You mean the actual, like, before it hits, that shot of like the paint can actually swinging towards
Yeah,
his
well,
face and everyone being in the shot?
I mean, yeah. What's the reality? So let's. I mean, the finished product
Okay, I
is
see what
fucking
you're saying.
amazing. What's the reality of creating that scene?
Okay, so the reality of creating the scene is we have a shot of the paint. It's the widest shot in the movie. We actually had to chainsaw a wall out of the way to fit the camera back enough and wide enough to actually get it, because we were a really wide movie. We were 2.25
Hmm.
ratio, and we needed to show not only the ground floor but also the second story where Luke was standing too, all in one
Hmm.
shot. So that was super wide. Um, and the shot is he's just let go of the paint can and it's swinging down towards Ricky's character who's blindfolded in the chair, and we cut away on the frame before it hits.
Hmm.
That was actually one of the few green screen shots we did where we did one shot of Luke throwing the paint can and then the other of Ricky sitting in the chair, uh, Garrett behind him, and Ashley pointing the gun up there in another take. And the only tough part was to keep everyone's eyes where the paint can would be
Gotcha.
as they're watching that. As far as the effect of the hit, a lot of it's sound. So I what I did was I cut to his feet, to Ricky's feet sitting in the chair, and you see his feet kind of like shutter jump, and then the paint splattered behind him. So we had two people throwing yellow paint on either side of him from behind, and then a third person just start dribbling the paint down his knees because the shot was from the shins down.
Hmm.
Um, so to me, my favorite part is the sound. Like when you don't show something, like 92% of it is sound effects. And I had an amazing team. In fact, the moment we finished Better Watch Out, they hopped off to do a Lego Batman movie.
Oh,
So
yeah.
these guys were huge people. And one of my favorite additions was they had the idea of the paint can lid kind of like doesn't land splat, but it's almost like a coin spinning until it lands
Yes.
flat. So there's this grotesque sound after the hit of this paint can lid just going like whoa, 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 and then finally flattening. To me, that's actually the most sickening part. Yeah. So really, how do you show all the pieces of what happened without showing it? So it was feet shuddering. You cut to Garrett with paint splattered on his face, just cod mouthed. You cut to Olivia as she's beginning to her face crumble, and then you cut back to the legs as not only is the paint dribbling down now, but the blood is mixing in with it too, and that was really important for that.
It was really
So
good for that
the
too.
blood and the viscera, yeah. Same thing with the hanging scene.
Right.
We could have done it in just one shot, but to me, it's so much more fun to see all the. It's kind of like you see his feet scrambling and pushing through the snow, and you realize, oh God, he can't stand up because it's too slippery. And then you see, his hands reaching, and oh, he can't push himself up either, and the noose is around his neck, and then he starts getting pulled up, and you see his feet kicking at the swing, trying to get his toes onto this swing so he can at least stand on it for a second. I love all the little details sometimes more than the whole, if that makes sense.
No, that totally does make sense. And like the attention to detail in Better Watch Out is fucking phenomenal. Because every single gag in this movie is set up and paid off. Even like you were saying in the hanging sequence, like I felt like when she at the beginning of the movie, Ashley looks out the door and she sees the swing ominously moving on its own, but the swing comebacks later. Like it's the establishing shot for the swing and its importance to the final act of the movie where the hanging happens. So he's sitting on the swing and then you see the swing swinging again as you go along. But the same thing is true for the dryer is set up and paid off. The snowman the Santa doll is set up and paid off. Like, just
that creepy fucking Santa.
creepy fucking Santa. Like, those are the best things about the movie to me, is like the attention to detail and the careful way that it is constructed and layers in upon itself. Like, honestly, the first time I watched it, I thought you cheated in the first act with Luke's plan. Like, I thought you did movie stuff, and it was like, oh, he just did a funny cut, or, there's no way that they could have set it up. But as you go through and you see some of the elements that are revealed to his plan in the second and third acts, and then you rewatch the movie, like, you didn't cheat at all for that first sequence. Like, I mean, it is all a very movie setup that he has going on, but like, he fucking executed that for real. Like, there's no cheating.
Thank you. That was really important to me.
I read that you made sure that all of like Luke's stunts were like, you Googled Luke's stunts to make sure that they were something that a 12-year-old could actually pull off. Is that true? And then why was that important to you?
Well, yeah, because yes, every single stunt that helped make the break-in more believable. Mm-hmm. Like, I hate it when you have a good movie, but then some little itchy OCD thing takes you out because you're like, oh, that's not realistic. And as soon as that happens, it kind of like, no matter how great and how compelling the story is, you kind of just, scratch that itch. I hate that. So,
the part that I found unrealistic was the fact that he could find his fucking spiders again. As a person who owns a snake, I've lost my snake twice, and luckily I've been able to find my snake both times. But like a spider, like that shit's gone. Like if you have a pet spider and you use it for a clever stunt, that shit's gone. Give up on.
It's totally gone. I couldn't agree more. There's so many holes in the movie that I wasn't able to. I'm not going to tell you guys what they are.
Okay, good.
But if you watch it enough, there's a lot of things that couldn't happen. But you know what? There were moments. I remember one of the big discussions in post was when one producer noticed one of the holes, and I was like, "Fuck!" And he was like, "We have to reshoot this scene, or we have to change the cut so that we can have a moment where Luke's back is turned away from the camera so he can say a line where we don't see his mouth moving." And I was like, "You're going to bring more attention to something that I guarantee you no one will ever notice." And to this day, nobody's ever noticed this hole, even though it's a glaring hole. You know what? I call it the Jurassic Park effect.
Yes, I was just thinking that.
The T-Rex paddock?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
And how like the T-Rex comes out, does the attack, and then suddenly it's pushing the car over the edge into the paddock, and suddenly it's like a 200-foot drop.
Yes. That's exactly what I was thinking in my head when you were talking about this.
I didn't notice.
Nobody gives a fuck about a hole when they are emotionally compelled.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so it's this weird, especially for someone as like detail oriented as I am, it's weird to be like, nobody's going to notice this, even though it's totally bothering the fuck out of all of us. And so it's kind of weird. It's kind of like the power of like emotional storytelling. You can get away with so much if people are invested.
Well, that the Tyrannosaurus Rex attack in fucking Jurassic Park is just one of the best goddamn scenes ever. And then it's like when somebody does, because you're never going to notice it unless you're really just taking the movie apart. And then when somebody points it out to you, like, honestly, I do have that OCD itch where I look for the holes in the films and I'm like, man, god damn it, like, could have done something to fix this. But like, as soon as that was pointed out to me, I did not give a shit for exactly the reason you said, because like, I'm so invested in what's going on in that scene. It doesn't matter to me. It's so thrilling and so enjoyable that it's fine. It's fine. There are going to be holes. That's okay. Sometimes it's not okay. I understand.
I read
as long as there's few enough. Yeah.
I read in another interview that you found yourself in the making of Better Watch Out that you're like a brutal editor. And I was wondering if that was at the script stage or post-production or just like all around. And if that affects how you watch movies, horror movies, and other ways.
All of the above. My scripts are always way too short. And then I try on set to then fill it out and get lots of improvising and details and things that I hadn't thought about in the script stage. But then again in the edit, and a lot of this also goes to the quality editors I've gotten to work with. Like for Better Watch Out, Julianne Deruvo was my editor, and she, like, it's more like I'm not precious. Like the script for Better Watch Out was 95 pages, and at one point we had it cut down to 81 minutes. And in fact, Universal, who picked it up internationally, they're like, it has to be longer than that or we can't make TV deals. You have to put in 2.5 more minutes. And so it was bizarre being told actually to fill out the movie more.
Yeah.
Because we thought at 81 minutes, it was flying. It was perfect. So now I watch the movie and it feels like it's fat. So
wait.
I haven't heard that from anyone else though, so maybe I'm a little
what are the
overly brutal.
What were the 2 minutes? Are they is it just a little bit of second here and a second there, or was it a scene?
Exactly. It's peppered everywhere. It's 2 more lines here.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of everything. Any long shot, I just added 2 or 3 more seconds to the long shot and just hoped that the music would be able to pull us through. And Brian Kachia's music is awesome, so we totally got away with a lot of it.
How much did that hurt? I mean, personally, when you got that feedback, you said you feel like you've got this thing streamlined and it's flying along like a machine. How was it painful? I know you're not precious. You said that, which is good because you got to be ready to kill stuff. But now you got to bring it back to life. That's weird, right? That's a weird experience.
It wouldn't have been so hard except Julianne Deruvo again. Like her suggestions, I was like, yeah, I think we can get away. It kept being things where I was like, I think we can get away with that. As she just kept adding seconds and seconds everywhere. It sucks because we were already, if you guys know kind of how post works after picture lock, we had picture locked it at 81 minutes. We'd already sent it to everybody, to our composer, to our sound designer, everyone, to our music supervisor. And so everyone's already working off of these things called reels.
Yeah.
So we had like 5 reels. Just because the programs can't take more than 20 or 30 minutes at a time. And when we were asked to put in 2 more minutes, everyone was begging us, do that in 1 reel. Just change one of them. Because
otherwise you have to redo all of it.
You have to redo all of it.
Yeah.
And we changed all 5 reels to make it work. And everyone was so angry at us.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
What?
Again, these were the guys that are like, we're doing Lego fucking Batman next. Do not do this to us. Wonderfully, they're called Trackdown. Trackdown was very nice. They didn't actually say that to me, but I could sense they were displeased, but in a very, very polite way.
So it seemed like you totally had, for an independent film, you totally had like a dream team of people. You had the Lego Batman people. You had Richard Hobbs.
I don't know how we did it. I don't. Okay.
You must
Actually,
know. You have to tell us. Even if you don't know, you have to make it up and explain this.
Okay. I'm going to try. So my production designer was the supervising art director on Mad Max Fury Road. Mm-hmm. He was not able to make our wrap party because he had to fly to Queensland to be the supervising art director on Thor Ragnarok.
God damn.
And then he basically had, I think, a couple days off from that before he then moved on to Aquaman. So he is second in command for these like $200 million films for the set design. He doesn't usually do production design, but I think he liked the script and he liked our meeting and said yes. And we lucked the fuck out with the set. I know it looks like a house in the movie, but it looked like a house when we were filming. Like it was bizarrely perfect. It was so fun. And then Trackdown was our sound designers, and they're huge. You know what? I think it's because in Australia, their kind of like tax incentives are so strong. You get 40 cents back on the dollar.
Right.
That
when their dollar is strong and actually is like equal to US dollars, it's not really worth it for US productions to come to Australia. But then like when we were filming, the dollar had just gone down a lot. It was worth like only 67 cents to like 67 American cents. Mm-hmm. So then all the US productions were coming. So Australia kind of goes through these dry periods and then these periods of insane work and then dry periods. And we happened to come in right at the tail end of a dry period when these really, really big people were saying, you know what, we have the time. We like this project. We believe in it. We'll do it. I don't know if I'd get that again. My stunt coordinator, actually my stunt coordinator is going to do everything I do because he's the fucking man. But he was in charge of like all the wire stunts for the Matrix movies and the Hobbit films and all the Wolverines that have happened.
This is George Saliba?
Yeah, George Saliba. I'm wearing his shirt right now, by the way. So George, if you're listening, you can't see it, but I'm totally wearing Stunt Squared right now.
Ooh, nice.
He's the fucking bomb. Yeah, and you know what? My favorite thing about the movie is I got to work with all these giant people, but they didn't act like giant people. I'm finding that the people who are at the very, 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 very top of the game, I don't want to say they don't do it for the money because obviously they want their things, but they do it for the love of the craft and they're so professional and cool to work with. I didn't feel like, some people. I was 33 when we were shooting, and I didn't feel like the young guy that no one believes in or respects with them. Some people I did get that bullshit from, but the top people did not give that to me, and it kind of says a lot about them.
I also read that you love doing test screenings, and which, like, I'm a huge stand-up comedy dork, so I know that if you want to make something effective, you want to make it something good, you have to bring it in front of the crowd. So what were some of the valuable discoveries you made in test screenings?
You're totally right. I don't get why directors are afraid of test screenings. I think they think that like producers are going to use that against them. And listen, the only time they're going to use it against them is if they're wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like filmmaking is an emotional science. You can't anyone who's like, I hate test screenings. That's just because you're a proud loser who's afraid of being proven wrong about or maybe you're not making the movie. I'm not making the movie for the audience. I'm just making it for myself. Then go fucking make a movie on your own dime, motherfucker. So yeah, I love test screenings, and in fact, every time like the team had a dispute about something, I just keep being like, let's test it. Mm-hmm. Go, no, we can't. No, we can. I love testing things. Some of the big things we learned were, here's the biggest one. Levi was really, really good in the first third of the movie in that not only was he being charming, but he was also leaving little drops and hints about what was going to come. But we discovered that audiences were way smarter than we were giving them credit for, and they were picking up on that early. And so, yeah, if you give even the tiniest little suggestion about where he's going to go, people kind of predict it, and then it was less fun to watch the second and third acts. So probably the biggest one was we had to dial back and like make him this glossy. See, to me, it's more predictable when he's this glossy, perfect, charming boy. I would have thought, oh, well, then clearly something's off about him. But that wasn't the case.
And I think it's better on the second watch where you get to infer, like, oh, look at him, he's being so sweet, but deep inside, he's rotten to the core.
Yeah, you're right. It's kind of like it's almost more true to how psychopaths think, which is like they don't leave any hints about themselves. They are absolutely like kind of stock perfect in how they present themselves.
Well, I sort of as we start to kind of hit the hour mark of the conversation. We've talked a lot about Better Watch Out and kind of the work that went into it. We've talked a lot about Undocumented and some of the background that went into it, but like we haven't talked a lot about Chris Peckover, who we are talking to. So I'm sort of like I'm curious, like, you know, when you're not making movies, you know, what are you watching? What movies have you seen this year that you dig? Like, tell us a little bit about what you're into outside of what you're working on.
I'm such a populist. My list is going to be boringly predictable. How about this? I'll say Get Out.
Yay.
A lot of people are like, oh yeah, it was a good horror movie. I'm like, no, it was the best. It was the smartest horror script since Aliens. Actually,
correct.
Smartest genre script since Aliens. I'll go out on a limb and say that. Here's why. Aliens, it actually got bros to be emotionally invested and cheer and scream and holler at a female lead in a movie about motherhood.
Fuck yeah.
And it's the fucking coolest shit that James Cameron pulled off there. And Get Out second only to that script because I don't care what side of the spectrum you are, like politically, you watch that movie and without ever feeling chided or embarrassed about who you are, you watch that movie and you go, oh, that's what that's like. And that is so hard to pull off, you know, like as I experienced with Undocumented, without kind of setting people off on the defensive. And I don't think anybody watched Get Out and watched it on the defensive. Like, oh, I'm not like that. Like, you just enjoyed it so much. And that was to Jordan Peele's credit. I think that script was fucking genius. And the execution of it. Aside from that, I don't know. I liked Blade Runner 2049, but also was checking my watch about halfway through. But I don't know.
It's a meditation.
But you know what? So I got another screenwriter buddy who I mean I have more than one, but one of my screenwriter buddies was like arguing pretty vehemently about how awesome the movie was, and I was like, listen, I can't argue you. I don't think you could have done better than what Denis Villeneuve pulled off, because if he had gone for a faster paced, you know, more modern speed, it wouldn't have felt like a sequel to Blade Runner.
Mm-hmm.
He did it right. It's just, you know, like it was a bit, you know.
And you like your movies 81 minutes on the dot. So.
Exactly.
You have places to be.
Editor. So I was looking at shots being like, I could have pulled 3 seconds out of that shot. I could have, but you know, I'm not Denis Villeneuve, and I aspire to be anywhere close as he is. So.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But the original Blade Runner for me is just okay. And
oh my God,
it's
Billy.
just okay. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it's just okay. It's fine.
I'm going to unplug his mic.
It's fine. It's fine.
But, you know, but it's, to me, what makes it so special isn't the pacing, for fucking sure. It was that it created a whole subgenre for sci-fi that hadn't existed before.
It did, absolutely. And Blade Runner 2049, even though I was never going to be in the bag for it, like, Denis Villeneuve is fucking amazing in it. And it's got some of the most visually stunning things that I've seen this year, I think. That sequence where he's with where Kay is in his apartment with the prostitute and the holographic person.
The three-way, the greatest three-way ever shot.
I was like, what am I watching? This is amazing. It was amazing. It was a whole series of really amazing, beautiful scenes to look at that I ultimately was just fine with at the end. So, all right. So Get Out, huge, unrelenting success. Agree. Blade Runner 2049, fine. Agree. You're all right, Chris Peckover.
So, word on the street. So, this isn't on your IMDb yet. And every interview you've done, you've said you're not allowed to talk about it. But I'm going to talk to you about your next project. And from what I have woven together from interviews, is that it's going to be something supernatural, a possession story. There's a doppelganger. You'll have a bigger budget. What? So, I feel like with all of the research I've done, I deserve one more detail.
Oh, my God. Lisa, how are you doing this? You're like a magic... Where'd you get this crystal ball?
I'm the Sherlock Holmes of podcasters, but the bar is extremely low. So I just Googled it. So
That's very impressive.
why? Thank you. Literate. That's the key. So any more deets? Like, where are you in the process of making this film?
So, I am. All right, let me see if I can give you a little bit more without giving you anything.
I've earned it.
You've earned it. Okay. I am teamed up with some absurdly cool producers on this. And I'll just say this would be the smallest movie that they've done ever. And by smallest, I mean smallest budget.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to try to make it for single digits millions.
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal.
That's the goal.
And well, of course.
No, I'm sussing out the pot of money size.
They're saying like we wouldn't be financially responsible to make it for double-digit millions. So
Okay.
we should pull this off in single digits.
Okay.
And we are currently out to some financing entities. And in fact, two of those I'm having meetings with this week. So I hope that something gets announced soon. But I will say it's a movie that, if Better Watch Out was me kind of like giving the finger at not giving the finger, but like subverting the home invasion genre.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just going for the fucking like jump scare kind of shitty movie. Like right now, Hollywood is very predictably like all for just the horror movies that are just make this really scary and like forget character, forget everything else. And I'm trying to infuse things a little bit back in.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite horror movie of all time is Poltergeist.
Yes.
And like the reason I love that movie is you are so invested in that family. And I remember being 8 and watching that movie and the scene where remember when the lights are coming down the staircase and like one like passes through the mom
Mm-hmm.
and she doesn't just gasp, she goes like and she like grabs her chest and like smells her scarf and then starts crying as she like brings the scarf over to her husband and she's like, smell my scarf, like my daughter just moved through my soul. She moved through my soul. And she like the little boy comes over and she lets him smell the scarf. And I remember I started crying as an 8-year-old and being like so confused that I was crying during a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I miss that. I miss that horror movies are allowed to be more than just like a gimmicky parlor trick series of jump scares, where you care. And because you care, you scare all the more because you're really, really invested in everybody. So I'm doing a movie that's like that. A couple places have said no because they're like, well, could you cut character and just add more scares? And we're all saying, and you know what, to these producers' credit, they were the ones who pulled it and said, no, we're not going to do that. We believe in this project. So I love these producers. They are wonderful. I can't wait to name names because they're awesome. You know, the other movies they've done, they're super smart guys. And yeah, I'm really excited about it. So if I can give a little bit more, it's going to be about a family that is isolated and dealing with something horrifying, but because you're so invested in the characters, it's all the more. And this is kind of like my love note to Poltergeist.
Holy shit.
I'm intrigued as fuck.
Yes, please.
Well, I read that Josh Olson, your marketing guy, has the storyboards, so I need his email address, please.
Josh Olson, after the job he did for Better Watch Out, I kind of was like, I'm not letting you go. So I got a like handcuffs, and we're handcuffed together. So like he's not going away. He's doing everything I do from now on. He's the fucking coolest, and he's so smart. And I feel lucky to have gotten to work with him. And well,
if he is nice, I might let him have the key to these handcuffs and maybe let him go.
That's going to
and
be
choose to come back now.
That's going to be the sequel. The sequel to Better Watch Out would be the director who has his marketing guy handcuffed to him.
Well, you get the old
trailers.
sledgehammer out. You get him to produce the good work. I mean, that I think that seems reasonable. It's a reasonable approach to creative endeavors.
Well, I will let him out for stretches in the backyard occasionally if he does a good job. It's fun.
Well, Darren, you've been quiet. Do you got any questions you want to throw Chris's way?
Oh yeah, Chris, what size TV do you have?
What size TV? Oh
Yes,
man,
sir.
wait. This is bizarre that you're asking this question because everyone always comes over to my house and they're like, "Oh my fucking god, your TV!" It's like a 80-inch screen.
Nope. He
Darren
just made
is
a face.
making his impressed face.
That's my whole face.
Yeah.
It just came, Chris. So thank you.
He likes a big screen.
Hand me a cigarette. Jeez.
It's important,
All right. Well, I officially love you then. That's all. All right. Darren out.
Darren out. All right.
Darren sounds cool. Why is he out? Okay.
I think as we wrap up the interview, we've done a stretch of these, and I think the single common question that I've asked everybody that we've talked to is, look, this is a conversation about filmmaking. It's a conversation about working in small budget worlds and, trying to grind out success, little success, little success, little success, and slowly put the bricks in place to build a church. And that's hard. And so I think sometimes it's nice to hear what keeps people going. So I am very curious as you look back at your last 10 years of filmmaking, what is the single thing that you are most proud of, that when you hit a shitty day makes you go, well, you know what, that moment, that's what makes this worth it?
Oh man, I think I have an answer for that.
Fuck yes.
That was a hard question. Okay. I was on the set of Undocumented, and we did not have many shoot days, as most indie movies do. And there's a scene in the movie where a mom, one of the immigrant parents, they've already been captured, and she's just been offered the bad guys, as bad as they are, they're kind of being like, but aren't we good? They say, we'll let you let your child go if you want, and just tell her to head north or whatever, or head south. So it's a mom trying to convince her 6-year-old daughter to leave this place. And I needed to get the 6-year-old to be crying and to be holding on to her mom and to not want to go, and then finally be convinced to run outside on her own and try to make it through the desert. And we only had time for 3 takes. And in the first 2 takes, Carmen was the actress. Carmen was fantastic. She's really, really, really good at crying and really good with emotion, and just wonderful dramatic actress. And my 6-year-old, I was expecting way too much of her. And she was doing all the lines, but she wasn't kind of like, her emotion wasn't there. And I remember our producers, Keith Calder and Jess Wu, they were kind of looking at me concerned, like the scene's not working at all. So I pulled L'Oreal to the side into another room, and it's the first time where I kind of broke my director's cherry, where I had no idea how to do things, or I had no idea what to do, but I created on the spot, I created a theory for 6-year-old child acting. And I gave her I only gave her 3 things to do. I said, let's cut all of your lines. You're only allowed to repeat one thing, and it's pero mama, which means but mommy. Mm-hmm. So you're only allowed to use pero mama. I said, in this scene, you have to hold on to her clothing, and she's going to push you away, and you have to your job is to hold on to her. You're not allowed to let go of her, okay? And the third rule is you're not allowed to break eye contact with her. And my thinking was, like maybe I could tap into her like childhood fear in some way of like holding on to your mom and like being forced to let go. And also, I know that like when kids see someone else crying, they're more likely to cry. And she had not been looking at the mom very much. So I was like, you have to look into her eyes. So on the third take, um, it was too good. Like she started bawling, and it was like it was awful. And the mom like tried to walk past the camera, and like someone held her back, and the scene finished, and we were all feeling awful because the scene had totally worked. It was amazing for the movie, but like we were all pretty horrified, and she kind of in the middle of her tears, like the scene had ended, and she kind of like wiped her eyes, and she looked at me, and she was like, "Was that okay?" And we all realized that she'd been acting, and it had been a safe space for her. I thought she was just totally like I fucked up, and I was never going to be allowed around children again. So, there's a lot of answers I could have given for motivation of like how to make it between movies, but the thing that keeps me going, and you're right, it was 6 years between my movies. I hope it's not another 6 years, but you know what? If it is, I think I'll be able to handle it, because it was the moment where I realized like I was born for this, and I'm good at it. And even when I have no plan, I have a sense for how people. I try to be. What's the word? I'm very empathetic, and so I try to put myself in people's shoes as the reason why it didn't feel awkward talking about touching boobs with a 12-year-old being a 33-year-old male. It's because I try to step in other people's shoes and figure out what they're going to feel and what their motivations are and so on. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but it's like I hold on to that. It's kind of my calling, and I hope I get to keep doing it because I think I'm good at it.
Yes, that is.
That's a great answer.
Holy shit!
Thank you so much. Was it Roger Ebert who said that films are empathy machines, and they're made to work this muscle, and I think that the work that you're doing is essential, and I hope that it doesn't take another 6 years for your next film to come out, this intriguing doppelganger possession family story with these big producers with their smallest budget movie, and I'm going to figure out what this film is. I have all the clues I need.
Do you want me to give you oh God,
yes?
I should not do this.
Yes.
I posted a video on my Twitter feed.
Uh-huh.
And it was an introduction for a festival. That's all I'll say. And I filmed it in the office. So if anyone recognizes that office, you know what producers it is. Did I just cause like a Reddit storm of like, we're going to figure this out?
Well, we're going to try and make that happen now. So sorry.
Just a bunch of sleuths.
That's all I'm going to say. I tried to make it. You're not going to be able to figure it out based on pictures or anything on the walls. Everything's too far away. But if anyone's been in this office, they'll recognize it.
All right.
I'm going to hit my blueprints of all of the offices in LA.
I guess then I want to say a couple of things to wrap up, because to be honest, that answer to that question was perfect, and I think that is a holy shit. All right, so that was really good. I want to say thank you for spending an hour and some change chatting with us. This was a really good conversation, and for everybody who decided to not pause the fucking podcast and go buy Better Watch Out and watch it at home, I hope that you turn around right now and go put it on the screen, because genuinely this is one of my favorite movies of the year, and I think that I think it very clearly sets out as a movie what it wants to accomplish, and it hits a fucking home run on what it set out for itself. So, dude, your work is aces. Whatever your next project is, we'll know. I'm excited. I am excited to see what comes next. So thank you so much for spending your time with us. Do you have anything that you want to promote aside from Better Watch Out? Where can people find you on the social medias, that sort of thing?
I've been getting a lot of like friend request through Facebook, but I'm going to say Facebook is going to be boring to you because it's just me doing more personal life stuff. So, and also like I kind of only befriend people who I know on that. But if you want to reach out through Twitter, I'm bad in that every time I'm stumped writing something on the page, I'll just go to Twitter to interact with people. So, and I love doing that. So I would say my handle is just my last name, so at Peckover, and I'm pretty good about responding to people. So
all right, guys. So you hear it. Watch the fucking movie. Get on Twitter. Tell Chris what a fucking great filmmaker he is, and help motivate him through the dry times. Or what the fuck ever. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
I have some ideas for your sequel to Better Watch Out called Better Not Cry. No, none of the same characters, just a shared universe. So you can tweet me.
Yep.
Ooh.
And then Better Not Power.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
that.
So you're getting
We
it.
need at least 13 of these films.
All right. All right.
That's awesome.
So, Chris, thank you so much for your time, man. And once the new movie comes out, you got to come back around and chat with us, okay?
Yes, please.
I am always around. You guys are awesome. And Darren, I know you didn't get to ask as many questions as you wanted, but
Oh,
you're cool too.
I asked the important question. That's the only thing I care about. I mean, I like the movie, and it's fine.
Exactly.
I just need to know what size TV you have, and you have you're perfect for me. So I meant that shit when I said I love you.
I read on the internets that he's taken. So
Look, I just want the TV. I mean, I love you, Chris, as a person. I mean, I'll be there for you, but I won't be in the way. Like I'll just I'll be quiet. I have headphones. Just want your TV.
If you guys are ever in LA, you can come over whenever you want. We'll watch some. I'm just now.
You can't say shit
borrowing
like
from
this
my
to me,
friend
Chris.
Troll 2. So
oh yay.
if you ever want to see Troll 2 on an 80-inch screen,
Fuck, yes.
Oh my god! That was me, Chris.
that's awesome. I've had so much fun, guys. Thank you so much. This
Thank
was
you,
a really
Chris.
great
This is
interview.
great.
Chris Peckover. How cool was that?
It was amazing.
Super cool.
Yes. So I'm definitely excited for his next film, and also he's gonna put us in touch with some very cool people. But this whole ITMOD CHATcast thing. This has been a while since we've done a CHATcast.
We've been busy. We went to Fantastic
Holy
Fest.
shit, yeah.
We had some homework to catch up on.
So we're kind of living our best lives over here.
That's right.
And they've gotten even
And
better.
then there's Billy.
Yep.
Oh, and then I'm here. I'm sorry.
But yes, welcome back, Billy, and welcome back, CHATcast. So be on the lookout for more cool interviews, hopefully coming sooner than later. Billy, what are your thoughts on your conversation that you just had with Chris Peckover?
Man, I've been excited to talk to this dude for a while, and we ultimately wound up waiting to have the conversation until after Better Watch Out came out, which I think was a good move because of the twist in the movie. But he's super fucking cool. And honestly, I've asked the question of everybody about their proudest moment, that bit in the interview, and I teary-eyed a little bit while he was talking. So I really dug everything that he had to say about this. It was great. It's good to be back.
He's definitely like a guy who clearly lives the gratitude attitude, and everybody he meets is now his best friend, and he wants to work with forever. And it's just beautiful to talk to somebody who's just so into what they do and who they do it with.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And I love him. He has an 80-inch television. God damn.
Right. Let's. I don't understand why I didn't lead with that. That was my mistake, Darren. I
Stop
apologize.
flirting with all of our guests, Darren.
He invited me to his home.
I think we were all invited.
We're going to have to uproot the podcast and go to L.A., you guys.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Well, I'm in.
Yeah. I think we should all live in one house like the monkeys. I keep trying to force.
I have 3 kids,
Oh, gross. They're not invited.
so maybe the one house thing is not.
You can
optimal.
they can be a duplex. Keep those children away from me.
Well, I'm fine with that. Can I keep them away from me as well? No, I shouldn't say that. That's not nice. I love my
They don't
children.
listen to podcasts.
I'm feeling punchy. Never mind. I love my children. They don't listen to this. It's okay.
I feel appropriately towards them. Okay, let's wrap her up. Okay, you can follow Billy Das at WB Das, right?
Yes.
on Twitter. And then you can follow me at Sidewalk Siren on Twitter,
Yes.
Instagram,
Yes.
and Letterboxd.
Yes.
And you can follow the Disco Dork. I'm pointing with my hand. Can you
She
hear
is.
this space work? And you can follow Darren at the Disco Dork on all social medias.
Yes.
At the Disco Dork.
At the Disco Dork. I think I said that.
Be careful, Elise. I see what you're doing. You're trying to take my job. Okay.
You know I don't know how to run the board.
All right. That's going to do it for us, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all enjoyed the interview. Be on the lookout for more goodness from In the Mouth of Dorkness at ITMODcast. You can follow the podcast at ITMODcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week. What day is it? And until next time.
Yay!